We are live. Welcome to what we're going to call episode 71 of the Athletic Philosopher podcast. I am your humble host, Jordan Goldstein, former university professor in sport history, philosophy, sociology, and a little bit of psychology. It's kind of what we're going to talk about today a little bit here. Things happened at the university. Lots of things. I'm proud of what I did. I'm pretty sure people on the other side may not be, but we're no longer in that environment, so we don't need to get all tangled up in that stickiness. I am now very deep, full mind, full heart, full body, full spirit, into the world of coaching, online and in person. I run one-on-one and group coaching where I intertwine fitness coaching with life coaching, where we utilize the physical training in order to ennoble our spirits, gain courage, gain self-knowledge, in order to transcend these limiting and limited versions of ourselves in body, mind, and spirit. And that's kind of what we're going to be talking about today. So in the show notes, you will see that there's a contact information page for me. If you at all want to get in contact with me and are interested to know about the coaching options that I provide and how I'm able to affect real life changes in people by unleashing the fun in fitness, man, we should be talking. I also am an assistant coach, the tribal professor on tribal training run by the excellent Ryan Dreyer. This is a little bit more structured in terms of intense training and going towards big endurance races and triathlon and ultra running. But it's basically the same thing in terms of utilizing the training, not just to have these physical breakthroughs, but to have these incredible life breakthroughs in mindset and also in the actions that we're taking in the world to live the lives that we desire and demand of ourselves. So if you're interested in any of these things, please get involved and get in contact with me. We are going to do a little bit of a short hit today, and this is one of those it's almost like a request episode, but it's not quite a request episode. I'm also live streaming this on Twitter, so there may be some interactions. Shout out to the people who are going to watch this live or take it in later. And this is a direct response video, and I'll pull it up. I really should prepare a little bit more for these, but there's something fun about improvising that I just really appreciate. And I was having an exchange with a mutual on Twitter, and I was talking a little bit about the difference between the mind and the heart, and here we go. Here's the exact post, verbatim. It says, "The mind searches for the truth, and truth is lowercase t. The heart understands the truth, capital T." All right? And shout out to my man Spencer Barkley. We had a little bit of exchange. He says, "Funny how the heart understands the truth, isn't it? When our society claims the mind is the pinnacle of understanding." And then I replied, "I have so much to say about this as a former university professor, obviously, because that's like the domain of the rational mind, where the rational mind reigns supreme." And he says, "I'd love to hear it." And I said, "Okay, I'm not going to write it down. I'll record a pod for you." So this one is for you, Spencer. I'll tag you when I post this up. I'm also doing a little bit of recon, a little bit of advanced work here. So I'm recording this on February the 11th, and it's likely not going to be uploaded until the following week when I'll be on vacation with my family, and I will not have space to record a podcast. But I've been wanting to get this one out, so we're just going to do a quick hit in between coaching calls, laundry, packing, picking up the kids, trail running, cooking dinner, all the great stuff. And also coaching my people through all of this, because I got a lot of people who are who are being coached right now, which is great, and there's a lot of activity. So I got to catch up on all that. But we are here for a different reason. So I want to talk today about this idea that the mind searches for truth, but the heart understands the truth. And the best way that I want to start this off is just, we all have this intuition, and we all know that the center of my being oftentimes point me in the direction that's most appropriate, and the mind kind of gets in the way to rationalize or to justify or to make an excuse or say why we should settle. And just a very, very simple quip, a very simple tag, a very simple quote that we all know is trust the gut. It's trust the gut. And I was actually trying to explain this to my daughter this morning at our breakfast. And as I often do, I start trailing off into prof mode and they don't listen. My daughter's at the age now where she is starting to get the eye roll and, Dad, you're lecturing us again and you're lecturing us. And they said, well, I was a professor. Sorry, that's just who your dad is. But I was just talking about, isn't it funny that we have these brains, right? And there's these synapses that are all firing and these webs of connections, and the brain is plastic, so it's growing and it's learning, and oh my goodness, there's all this amazing like physiological stuff that's happening in the brain, and it's all related to like knowing the world and making sense of the world and being able to navigate the world. But we have like billions and trillions of bacteria that live inside my gut that are smarter. Like, they direct me way more towards the things that are valuable and truthful in my life than this thing ever has. And you might think, well, what are you talking about? Okay. The vagus nerve, the largest nerve in your body, is the direct nerve that goes from your stomach to your brain. Okay. And it ain't a one-way street. So you ever have that like instinct that you know something before you thought about it? Usually it's, I just felt it. Well, you actually did know it. You knew it before your brain could even process it because your gut knew it. There's like this animal instinct inside of us, right? This is the survival instinct. This is the scanning for predators even when I'm sleeping instinct. Which explains why nobody ever sleeps really well in a new place, because your brain won't shut off because it's a new place. There could be new things coming to eat me out of the dark. So we have this direct highway in the biggest nerve in your entire body, right between the gut and the brain. So when I say something like the mind is looking for the truth, but the heart really understands the truth, like that's what I'm talking about. And when I say like the center of my body, I'm talking about this heart-gut axis where I can feel something in my gut or I can know something in my conscience, and the brain is trying to dissuade me from following those signals. Why is this? Why does this happen? Okay. Let's just talk about knowledge for a minute. I don't have any notes on this, and this would definitely have been a good one to provide some notes from the world of psychology and philosophy. But it's more fun. Let's see how I can do this live. Like, this is all off the dome and it's just me remembering. And it's just really funny. It's really funny how this all works. Like, one of the quotes that I've been using a lot in coaching, and when I talk about coaching, that's certainly the people that, I guide, but it's also myself, because I do all the things I ask all my people to do. And I'm sort of like the first experiment for all this stuff. And the quote that I've been coming back to a lot is this incredible Aristotle quote, which says, quote, you can never learn anything that you didn't already know. You can never learn anything that you didn't already know. And the mind is thinking, what are you talking about? I learn new things all the time. There's new information. Like, just think about school, like going through school in grade 1 and grade 2 and grade 3. It's like, I'm learning new things. What are you talking about, Aristotle? Like, you may think you know knowledge, but apparently you don't. Well, I mean, like, he's called the philosopher for a reason, so let's give him some respect. What does he mean by this? That I can't learn anything that I already didn't know. He's talking about value. Okay. He's talking about value. He's talking about things inside of yourself that are related to knowing yourself. He's talking about virtues. He's talking about character, who you can become. You cannot become someone who you were not destined to become. All of your potential is inborn inside of you. It's exactly like a seed. This is an analogy I used to use all the time when I was professing. You are a mix of objectivity and subjectivity. You are a mix between biology and environment. You are a mix between society and the physicality of your body. So you're a seed. Everything that you can be, all your genetic material, everything that's your potential in life to grow up to be, is inside of that seed, right? It's like a tomato plant can only ever become a tomato plant. You know, a walnut tree can only become a walnut tree, right? There's no outside of that potential. Just like you were born with all your genetic coding. You were born to only be able to grow a certain height. You were born to only have a sort of a maximum capacity for your brain. You were born with particular limits or gifts in terms of your physical body. When people say like you were born for it, that's what they're talking about. And we see this in the world of sports all the time. It's like Michael Phelps was born to become an Olympic swimming champion. Why? Because he has insane lung capacity, like a freak. He has double jointed chest in both sides. And he's tall and lean. His body was made to go fast underwater. And he has 13 Olympic gold medals to prove it. He was born to be a swimmer. I was born to be a professor. The way my brain works, it takes complicated, complex ideas and synthesizes them almost effortlessly. This is one of the reasons I don't do notes in these episodes. It's because the webs of understanding inside my mind, they're so diffuse and they all connect to each other in so many interesting and intriguing ways that I'm able to just go off the fly. I always loved reading. I love silence. I love isolation. I like investigating the truth. I like speaking about high-minded ideals and events and having long and expansive conversations about history and philosophy and psychology and religion and where one ends, the other begins. And I don't see them as these hard and fast categories. I see the ways they all connect effortlessly. I was born to do this. I was also born to be athletic. Physical pain is not a big issue for me. Pushing through physical pain is not an issue for me. So I've always been kind of destined to be doing exactly what I've been doing. I've already known inside of me all along. I just needed life and the experience to bring me to this position, Just like Aristotle said, I couldn't learn anything I didn't already know already. Or the things that matter were already inside of me. Was another way to put it. When I'm thinking about my potential in life, it's always been inside of me. It's always been directed. And here's where this kind of dichotomy between the mind and the heart begins to work. Because while I may have dreams and aspirations and passions and potential, I have to survive. Okay? I have to survive. And the brain enables me to survive. It enables me to assess threats and risks, to make calculations, to use probabilities, to rely on past experiences in order to predict future occurrences. And this navigates the complexity of the world for me. The brain, and I've said this many times on the podcast, the brain is a shortcut machine. And thank God it's a shortcut machine, because goodness gracious knows we need it. We cannot interact with reality as it is. We must have blinders on. We cannot focus on every single thing that's outside. We need to know what is the most pressing on us and how can we most effectively and efficiently move from current problem to potential solution. And we do this through trial and error over and over again. So one of the ways we might start thinking about this difference between the brain and the heart is to think about something like science, which I'm a giant science respecter. Obviously, I love knowledge. I was a professor. So what I say here is not to denigrate the rational mind, but it's to properly understand its uses, where it is supreme, and where we want to empower it. But also where we've got to tamper it down, where we've got to harness it, and where we've maybe got to put it in the back seat as opposed to being in the driver's seat. And that is the issue with society. And that is one of the downstream effects of the scientific revolution on our society's epistemological outlook. Too many big words, Professor. Yeah, fair enough. Epistemological, that just means how we know things. So that's like the knowledge of knowing things. Okay, so a religious epistemology is we know because scripture. We know because God did this. A scientific epistemology is we know because we've done the experiments. We know because we've done the trial and error. Okay, so I'm a big science respecter. But this gets to this understanding of like what's the truth and what's the truth, like the big T truth. The big T truth is something I can feel. It's something I don't necessarily need to explain, but I know is correct. Small T truth, that is like I need the double-blind study and the placebo effect and like all these things to know what's happening. So science gives us a good way to understand this. What most people think science does is it produces knowledge in society. And in some sense, it does, but that's not its primary function. What science is a method of knowledge destruction. Okay? It's the search for the small T truth. It's to know what's real and what's not real. And oftentimes, it just disproves what we thought we knew. That's the beauty of science, is it destroys knowledge that is false or that is not complete, and it replaces it with something that's a little bit more aligned with the truth. But the beauty of science is whatever it creates, it will destroy inevitably, right? Like, that's one of the beautiful parts about science. That's like Albert Einstein, coming across the theory of relativity and thinking, oh, shoot, like I got it wrong and it doesn't work. And then somebody coming along after he dies and proving, oh my gosh, like it kind of does work. And then another scientist coming along and being like, I don't know, quantum kind of throws all this for a loop. And then somebody will come along and they'll question quantum, right? So it's this never-ending progression of knowledge destruction, and we should appreciate that. But what happens in society when science becomes the way in which I know things? And science is the only way in which I know things. That's the problem with the modern world. And I'm kind of all over the place here, probably when you're listening, but inside my mind, this is all so beautifully connected. And you might be thinking, why are you talking about modernity? Why are you talking about science? Well, friends, I'm a historian of modernity, and this is my dissertation, okay? This thing is big time in terms of what I had to do in order to put that thing together. That was a lot of rational brain up here. But the issue with modernity, and this is sort of like the hallmark of modernity. In modernity, the only things that are real are the things that can be measured. In modernity, the only things that are real are the things that can be measured. So the epistemology of modernity is that science is at the top of the pyramid and every other thing is less. Every other thing is less. So spirituality, religion, subjective feeling, aesthetics, taste, that is subservient in the knowing sphere to science. Science is the top of the pyramid because science gives us what's objectively true. Measurement. Things that I can see, touch, feel. It's related to the philosophical stream of empiricism, which means that the things are real, the things that I can prove. The things that are real are the things that I can prove, which is not a bad epistemology, but clearly it's limited. Clearly it's limited. And why is it limited? Well, because I have the gut. I have the gut and the heart. And I'm an individual. And I'm instantiated into an individual body, which means I have subjective experiences. I have experiences that are only mine and mine alone, and I can determine the value, the meaning, the quality, the veracity of my experiences. And in the modern world, the subjective, like, to say that it's below the objective is not even strong enough. It's kind of like the objective up here, there's some middle ground, and then there's the ground, and then underneath the ground is where we buried the subjective. Because it can't be measured. So therefore, it's not really real. Now, is it? And I had this really fun challenge as a professor because I'm a history and philosophy guy, and I'm teaching first-year students who only care about scientific knowledge. So I was in sort of like a mixed program in kinesiology where the faculty members weren't evenly split in terms of numbers, but there was a very strong consensus that there needed to be a humanities base in addition to learning the scientific technical applications of the body in motion, right? Kinesiology is the study of the body in motion, right? So yeah, we can study it scientifically to know how it happens, what's happening, how to improve it, right? How to heal it, how to improve performance. But we also need to know why it means something. We also need to know if it's good or bad. We need to know the moral qualities to it. We need to know the history of how people have moved in society and what that movement has done in and to those societies. But the freshmen, they don't care about that. Even though this is all kind of explicitly sold in the program, they still show up first year thinking like, I'm going to be a doctor or a physiotherapist or an athletic trainer. Something that works solely with the body and that solely works through the objective knowledge that we gain in science through the body. And they walk into my class and I'm their first professor and I'm Mr. Philosophy. How do I talk to these people? How do I talk to them? Well, I started to make them believers in this idea that the objective world is a limited understanding of the totality of truth. And because they're athletes, I don't have to work hard. I don't have to work hard to prove this to them. Because in sports, I actually merge the subjective and the objective in a perfect harmony with each other when I understand it. I think I've mentioned this before in the podcast too, but in terms of like symbolism, I think the most true symbol that's ever been created by any human ever is the yin and the yang. I just think it's a perfect representation of so many things that are true in our lives, and it's like a paradox in and of itself. That you can create a symbol that expresses a paradox is kind of a paradox in and of itself, because how could the symbol solve the problem of competing ideals of truth within a seemingly contradictory structure? So it's always this beautiful depth to the yin and the yang. But one way that I like to think about it, it's a representation of what's true and the truth. And it's the mix of the objective and the subjective, right? You could think the white is the objective and the black is the subjective. It doesn't make a difference. But the thing about the yin and the yang is there's always a little bit of one in the other. Is that there's always a little bit of one in the other. And it's not really clear where one starts and one begins. And to me, if that's the symbol, it's the difference between the objective and the subjective. Well, where does sport play a role? What's sport in the drawing? And to me, sport is the line. Sport is the curvy line that separates the black and the white. It's the proper mediation between these two spheres of truth. Because clearly, sports cannot exist without records. It cannot exist without measurement. It cannot exist without a standardization. So we need the objective elements to animate and bring meaning to sport. But we also recognize that it's never just the numbers. It's the narrative. It's the character arc. It's the heroic stories in sport. Like, that's why we care. Nobody cares about numbers in isolation. They care about numbers They care about numbers in conjunction with a story. Spoiler, humans can't make sense of anything if it's not in a story. They can't make sense of anything that's not in a narrative. This is one of my skills as a historian, is that I was trained in the narrative. That's my method. The method for how I convey information is a story. It's a beginning, a middle, and an end. And that can take many different forms. But effectively, like, I trained in storytelling, bringing together complex ideas into one cohesive understanding. And that's what sports does, right? If you think about something like the 4-minute mile, the 4-minute mile is cool, but why is it so cool? It's because people didn't believe it was possible. And we have these characters in the story. You think about Sir Roger Bannister, right? This guy who's studying to become a neurosurgeon, and he's trying to break the record, and he's trying to break the record, and he's failed, and he's failed. And all of a sudden, in like that one perfect play, in that one moment, he breaks it. Right? And he breaks it. So it's never just the numbers in isolation that give us value in sport. It's numbers in conjunction with stories and with character arcs. And the character arcs, they have no meaning without the numbers. So it's this beautiful kind of like paradox. And sport is this mediator. It's this beautiful mediator between the two. So when I've got athletes in front of me, they have embodied experiences. They may not be able to explicitly describe it as such, but if I just sort of present an idea, it's not even like I'm inside of their heads. It's that I already know it's true. Remember, you cannot learn something that you didn't already know. So I've got these athletes, and I have to convince them that subjective truth is just as valid as objective truth. And before you start rolling your eyes of, oh, we're going to get into learned experience. Yeah, no, you should be totally skeptical of that. The problem with the woke studies people and the critical theorists who go way too far and the deconstructionists and all these people, guys, I know all these people. My committee, classical Marxist, critical theorist, gender specialist, and a radical deconstructionist. So I know these people. I know what makes them tick. And shout out to Dr. Heine, Dr. Walmsley, and Dr. Morrow. You guys were all fair, and you were all amazing. You did not force me to do any of that stuff, even if you suggested it to me, and you didn't hold back me for not agreeing with you. Total stand-ups, total class acts, even if we disagree. You guys were awesome supervisors for that reason alone, and I have a tremendous amount of respect for you guys. So shout out. But it's like, what do I do with these students? What do I do with these students? I have to get them to be believers in themselves, and that the things that they've experienced are just as valid as the thing that, recorded their experience or the measurements. So how do we then start becoming believers in subjective truth? Well, here's exactly what I used to say to them. Objective truth, and I used this analogy of ice cream, and I got this from the philosophy professor who I co-taught the class with, and who really was a solid mentor to me. That's Dr. Tim Elcombe. Shout out, Dr. Elcombe. I saw him do this in one of his lectures, and I thought, oh, that's just brilliant. I want to do this. So it's really not my analogy, but then again, it's kind of like everybody borrows from everybody. So it's like ice cream. What is the objective truth about ice cream? It's a frozen dessert that's made from milk, right? It's generally sweet, and we usually eat it at dessert, okay? So that's like the ingredients. It's the makeup. And how do we make it? Well, we churn it like we would churn butter, but it's like a frozen churner, and we're using the heavy cream. And okay, so there's like the whole, how do we make the ice cream? That's the objective part. What's your favorite flavor of ice cream? What's the best flavor of ice cream? Oh, okay. Now we're into this. Is there an objective measure? Do we need to go to like the Dairy Council, and the Dairy Council has these experts, and all the experts, they're all unanimous and say chocolate is the best? No. And even if there was that, you already know, like, no panel of expert can tell me what my taste tell me. And when I eat chocolate ice cream, it's good, but it's not as tasty as strawberry or vanilla. Or if you're me, it's like cherry or like maple walnut or something. Maple walnut by far is the best ice cream flavor. Shout out Canada for that one. You're missing out if you've never had it. Think about it. It's like maple syrup ice cream with a little crunch. Delicious. And that gets people thinking, oh, how could anybody come and tell me that my favorite flavor of ice cream is not true? How can I then go and tell somebody else that their favorite flavor of ice cream isn't true? Okay, so now we're into this idea of aesthetics and tastes and preferences, right? And now we're getting close to this idea of value. I value one thing more than another. Who are you to tell me that my value is incorrect? Who are you to say that my value of family is not as good as your value of making money? Well, I mean, that's a bad example, but maybe it's not. Maybe because I'm in a context where money is not the thing that I need to gather the most, right? Versus somebody maybe who lives in poverty, like, and thank God I don't live in poverty and wasn't born into poverty. But for someone who was, money as a high value makes good sense, because without money, none of the other things, good things in my life can be achieved. But once you've already got the money, it's like, do you need any more? Do you need any more? So these things are contextual. The values are contextual. It's not just the black and white as to what's the right answer. There may be a right answer for me, and there might be a different answer for you, and that's okay. And now we're starting to get into that idea of the heart knows a little bit more than the mind. And all of this should be really framed by, how do I live a life of the most meaning? How do I live a life of the most value, right? Is it something that I can deduce logically and rationally in the mind? No. It's clear that that can't happen. Why? Oh, because the mind is a shortcut machine. So whatever I put inside the mind, it's going to cut up and it's going to move effectively and efficiently through all of the difficult parts in order to get me to the best possible solution as quickly as possible. But does meaning in my life mean shortcuts? Does meaning in my life mean taking the easy road instead of the hard road? How far back should we go? Let's go to the parable of Heracles. So Hercules, the greatest of all the ancient Greek heroes, the demigod, right? Half man, half mortal, 12 labors dude. When he is about to enter into adulthood, he is provided with a choice. The legend has it that he is visited by two fairies, one representing virtue and one representing vice. Of course, vice is the one that gets there first. You've never had this play out inside of you, have you? Vice gets there first, and vice tempts Heracles. Oh, Heracles, follow me, and you will live a life of pleasure, of comfort, of no toil, of no struggle. You will have all the happiness. And she points down. Why? Well, because we know where a life of vice leads. We know where a life of always trying to take the easiest path, the path of least resistance, the shortcut, it never leads to a valuable and meaningful life that's related to your potential. Think about that seed analogy from before. I can only be the seed that I was born as, but there's so much that is going to determine the quality of my life. What soil have I been planted in? What's my access to sunlight? What's the water that I'm getting? If the right conditions, right? If the seed is put in the right conditions to grow, it's going to be tall, it's going to be strong. If it's this tomato plant, the fruit is going to be sweet and delicious. But if it's bad soil, not a lot of water, bad sunlight, the plant might not even grow. It might not even grow. So we recognize there's an interplay between the objective and the subjective in terms of the quality of what is going to transpire in the life of anything. And it's just funny how this all works. We just ran this Oracle Rumble 50 miler with the team, and Coach Ryan, in one of our mindset sessions, he prompted everybody by talking about this Biosphere 2 project, where they tried to grow plants in a simulated environment so that it could be reproduced, let's say on Mars, like a foreign planet. And they grew these trees and these plants in perfect conditions, but they all died. Why? Because there was no challenge. It was the easy road. And they could not withstand the very first element of adversity. And so they died. And that's what happens when we take the easy road in life all the time, is we don't gain resiliency. We crumble under the first sign of adversity and pressure, and then we end up in this negative spiral that crashes us down to the very bottom of our potential. So back to Heracles. So, Vice is in his ear. She's pretty tempting, but, he's not making that decision. The second fairy comes along, and that's Virtue. And Virtue is, she's honest, man. Vice is a bit of a liar, right? She says, come with me and you'll know no struggle. And it's like, ha ha ha. Yeah, that ain't true. All the shortcuts you take are going to put you in for a world of hurt. But Virtue, I will not lie to you, Heracles. The road that I ask you to travel, it's the hard and the narrow road, and it's filled with struggle and it's toil and challenge. But it's the only road that will lead you to your potential. It's the only road that will lead you to your potential. So when I'm talking about meaning in life, I cannot subject this to the mind, because the mind wants me to take the easy road. That's what it's programmed to do. And in so many areas of my life, I need that. I need it to survive. I need it to thrive. But when it comes to determining the quality and the meaning of my life, it cannot be in charge. It does not know what to search for. It's searching for this small t truth of a cost benefit analysis and an objective assessment of the situation and what is the most optimal way forward. And how can I convince other people, right, that I made the right choice? And it's ego and it's pride and it's all these things. But Heracles, he knows. He doesn't go to vice, he goes to virtue. And then he's got the 12 labors, which were 10, but then he cheated, so he actually had to get 2 more. And he get 2 more labors. That didn't happen to anybody. This never happened to anybody, so, that doesn't happen in your life. Oh my gosh, the myths are amazing for this. The myths are amazing for this. So therefore, the heart is the place where I have to go. It's the thing that knows the truth. It's the thing that already knew everything about me before I was even allowed to start acting. It's directing me towards that greatest potential. It's the thing that if I'm the seed, it's telling me that's the soil. Go there. That's where you're going to get the sunlight. Go there. That's where the water is going to come. That's where the wind is going to blow against you to make you strong. That's where the adversity comes with the animals that are going to be trying to pry you open and get your seeds and eat the fruit and all these things. And you're going to have to adapt and you're going to have to overcome and you're going to have to figure out defenses and ways. And what do plants do? Plants produce the fruit in sweetness so that the animals can eat it and then distribute their seeds wide and far, right? So the fruit's like this kind of weird offering to the animals in order for it to grow more. And it may seem like I'm absolutely out on this, but I promise you it all comes together. And I'm going to try and wrap this up very quickly because I have more things to do today. Many more things to do. So I appreciate everybody for coming along on this exploratory understanding of this question of why does the mind not know things and why does the heart know a little bit more? It's in this particular area of constructing meaning and aiming at my true potential. That's where this is the most true and where you need to live it most in your life. This is why the people that always settled in life, I hate this job, but it's a good paycheck. Cool. I don't need more stuff, but I have money and people like stuff. So you end up accumulating, you end up living a life that on the outside looks like everybody should want that life, but on the inside you hate it. It's empty. It's hollow. You've given away what matters the most, which is the gut and the heart and the conscience. And the conscience. This is where meaning comes from in life. This is why people don't make the hard sacrifices that they're being directed to make, because it's just easier to settle. And it's easier to settle because you're going to get approval. You're going to get social approval because you're talking to people who have also settled. And misery loves company. So people who are miserable because they made the wrong choices in life are going to congratulate you for also making the same miserable choices in your life. Because they don't want to be shown that there was an alternative. They don't want to be seen. They don't want to see that the mirror is pointing back at me when you tell me you did something different that I wish I could have done in the moment. Do you know how many professors I heard from when I stood up for free speech on campus, when I didn't even have tenure? Do you know how many messages I got? Animized people, random, saying, I'm at so-and-so university. I didn't speak up, and I really admire you for speaking up. People know when they've sold out. People know when they've given it away. There's no amount of rational thinking that's going to solve the emptiness of your soul. It doesn't happen. The mind can't lead you there. It's not equipped to handle this. It shouldn't be in charge. People have this realization way too late in their lives. When it's too late, they can't do anything about it. But the heart was telling you all along. The heart has always been directing you to the thing you needed to be doing, to the sacrifice that you needed to make, to the pride that you needed to swallow, to the humble pie that was served ice cold that you needed to eat. It's always known. It's always been directing you there. You just don't listen. You became an expert at not listening. And now you're paying the price. So it's not that the heart always knows everything and the mind is dumb. That would be insane. It's that when it comes to the value of my life, I cannot subject that to a cost-benefit analysis. I cannot allow the rational mind to come in and start creating hedges. I'm either all in or I'm out. There is no middle ground when it comes to the heart. I have to be fully with it. I have to go where it tells me to go. I have to trust. I have to have faith. I have to have self-belief. I have to have courage. Now, do you see why that line in between the black and the white and the yin and yang that can be understood as sport is so valuable? It allows me to recognize when the mind should be in charge and when the heart should be in charge. When I need to focus on the cold, hard data versus when I can extract out the subjective meaning for myself. If I DNF a race, there's not all the good feeling. Like, I can't good feeling my way into finishing the race. I just didn't do it. I didn't do it. But I also don't have to define the race by the failure to cross the finish line. Like, I can have both. And so the further I go in sport, recognizing this as this mediator between these two valid realms of truth, the more I'm able to properly understand when I've got to allow the heart to search for that big T truth that it's always known and that's always been inside of me, versus when I have to let the mind do the experimentation and the rationalization and the cost-benefit analysis of the objective data. That's what I mean when I say, like, the mind searches for truth, but the heart already understands it. The heart already knows, and it's known all along. The mind is the thing that's got to figure it out. So when I am coaching people and when I'm determining the right course of action for myself in life, it looks something like this. Listen to your gut. That's where you need to go. Then use your brain to figure out the steps you need to take to get there as fast as possible. So I'm not taking a shortcut on the meaning, but I'm also not going to excessively grind myself into the dust in order to get there, right? So it's heart and gut first, mind second. Heart and gut first, mind second. And I'm going to give you one final quote to end this guy off. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Thank you for sticking with it. And it's a Viktor Frankl quote. And it says, quote, conscience is the surest science. Conscience is the surest science. And he is a psychiatrist who is interested in treating people through a psychiatry of meaning and value and responsibility in life. So each individual can be treated based on the subjective values that are most important to them, and then that can be utilized to objectively help them move through the world with this positive meaning behind them that will allow them to overcome any adversity. And the truest science of how we know this is the conscience that's inside of you. The little voice that says, that's wrong. You know it's bad. Don't do that. You have to go here. You have to stand up for this value. You have to live in accordance with what you are saying you believe. So when it comes to the mind and it comes to the heart, I'm going to leave you on that. Conscience is the surest science, because science is a method of knowledge destruction, and conscience is what I always knew all along to be right about what I needed to do in my life to make it the most meaningful and valuable that it could possibly be. Out. Peace and love, everybody. I'll catch you in the next episode. If I wanted to drop the mic, I would, but it's already been kind of beat up here, so I'm not going to drop it. All right, that's it. Love everybody. Thanks for listening. We'll see you in the next one.